The most dangerous threat isn't evil. It's stupidity. What if I told you that the greatest threat to society isn't hatred, violence, or even corruption? It's something far more dangerous, something that destroys civilizations from within. Dietrich Bonhoeffer, a theologian and resistance fighter against the Nazis, witnessed one of history's darkest moments. He saw how intelligent, well-educated people blindly followed tyranny. How ordinary citizens justified the unimaginable. How entire societies collapsed, not because of pure evil, but because of something even worse: stupidity. But here's the terrifying part. Stupidity isn't just ignorance. It's not about lacking intelligence. Some of the most educated people in history have been the most foolish. Bonhoeffer's shocking claim? Stupidity is more dangerous than malice, because while you can argue with an evil person, you can't reason with a fool. Think about it. A truly evil person knows they're doing harm. They plot, they manipulate, they act with intent. But a stupid person? They follow orders without thinking. They spread lies without question. They believe they are on the side of good, even as they destroy everything around them. History has proven this over and over again. How did ordinary citizens enable Nazi Germany's atrocities? How did intelligent people blindly accept propaganda? How does society still fall into these same traps today? The answer lies in Bonhoeffer's theory of stupidity. And once you understand it, you'll never look at the world the same way again. Now let's uncover the terrifying truth behind stupidity and why it's the perfect tool for control. The psychology of stupidity: why smart people do foolish things. When we hear the word stupidity, we often imagine someone who lacks intelligence or education. But what if I told you that stupidity has nothing to do with IQ? What if some of the most educated people in society, scholars, politicians, CEOs, are capable of the most foolish, reckless, and dangerous decisions? This is the chilling insight Dietrich Bonhoeffer uncovered. Stupidity is not an intellectual defect. It is a moral and psychological failure. It is not about intelligence. It is about the unwillingness to think critically, question authority, or recognize when one is being manipulated. And the most terrifying part? Stupidity is not just an individual flaw. It is a collective disease that spreads like wildfire, especially when people feel powerful. 1. The difference between ignorance and stupidity. To understand Bonhoeffer's theory, we must first separate ignorance from stupidity. Ignorance is simply not knowing something. A person can be ignorant, but still open-minded. They can learn, grow, and change their opinions when presented with new evidence. Stupidity, on the other hand, is willful blindness. It is when a person chooses not to think, not to question, not to listen, even when the truth is right in front of them. This is why the most dangerous form of stupidity is not found in the uneducated, but in those who believe they already know everything. How often have we seen this in history? Entire populations convinced of lies, blindly following leaders, refusing to consider that they might be wrong. Bonhoeffer realized that stupidity is not just about the absence of knowledge, it is about the rejection of wisdom. 2. The more power a stupid person has, the more dangerous they become. There is a disturbing truth in Bonhoeffer's theory. Stupidity thrives in people who feel powerful. A powerless person, no matter how foolish, has limited influence. But when a foolish person gains authority, they become unstoppable. Think about it. A foolish king can destroy an entire kingdom. A foolish general can lead thousands to their deaths. A foolish leader can manipulate millions into believing dangerous lies. And perhaps most terrifyingly, the more power a stupid person has, the less likely they are to listen to reason. Bonhoeffer observed this in Nazi Germany. Many of the people who carried out the Holocaust were not sadistic murderers. They were bureaucrats, officers, and citizens who simply followed orders. They did not see themselves as evil. They saw themselves as good Germans, doing what was expected of them. But how did this happen? How did an entire nation fall into moral blindness? Because stupidity increases when people feel part of something bigger than themselves. When they are given a sense of belonging, certainty, and moral justification, they stop thinking as individuals. They no longer question authority. They no longer examine their own actions. They believe that as long as they follow the rules, they cannot be responsible for what happens. This is why totalitarian regimes rely on stupidity. Not because people are inherently evil, but because it is easier to control those who do not think for themselves. 3. Why stupidity thrives in modern society. You might be thinking, well, that was Nazi Germany. We wouldn't fall for that today. But look around. How many people believe everything they see on social media without questioning it? How often do we repeat political talking points without actually understanding them? How many times do we allow the media, corporations, and governments to tell us what to think without ever thinking for ourselves? Bonhoeffer's warning wasn't just about dictatorships. It was about human nature itself. The conditions that create mass stupidity, fear, propaganda, blind loyalty, are still present today. And they are more powerful than ever. Social media rewards groupthink. People are shamed for questioning the correct opinions. Leaders on all sides manipulate emotions rather than encourage rational thought. The more people follow the crowd, the less they think for themselves. And here is the final, most horrifying truth. Stupidity is nearly impossible to cure. It is not a disease of the mind, it is a disease of the soul. And once a person has surrendered their ability to think for themselves, there may be no turning back. And that brings us to the most dangerous aspect of all, why you can never argue with a fool. The prison of stupidity, why you can't argue with a fool. If you've ever tried to have a rational discussion with someone who refuses to see reason, you already understand what Dietrich Bonhoeffer called the prison of stupidity. You bring facts. They dismiss them. You explain logic. They twist it. You try to reason. They mock you, ignore you, or worse, become hostile. It's as if they are wearing mental armor that blocks out anything that challenges their beliefs. And here's the terrifying truth. They are. Bonhoeffer made a chilling observation. You cannot reason with a stupid person because their stupidity is not a lack of intelligence, it is a refusal to think. He described stupidity as a self-imposed blindness, a kind of intellectual laziness where people surrender their critical thinking to emotion, ideology, and social pressure. But why does this happen? Why do people double down on their beliefs, even when confronted with undeniable proof that they are wrong? The answer is far more disturbing than simple ignorance. 1. The emotional shield. Why facts don't matter to a fool. Most people assume that stupidity is about a lack of knowledge. That if we just educate people, they will wake up and change their ways. But knowledge alone does not cure stupidity, because stupidity is not rational. It is emotional. A stupid person is not just wrong. They are committed to being wrong, because their beliefs are not based on logic. They are based on identity. If this belief is wrong, then who am I? Emotion. If I accept the truth, I will feel shame and regret. Loyalty. If I change my mind, my group will reject me. A smart person seeks truth, even when it is uncomfortable. A stupid person avoids truth because it threatens their sense of self. If you challenge their belief, they don't just feel like they are wrong. They feel like they are under attack. If they admit they are wrong, they don't just lose an argument, they lose their identity. Instead of reconsidering, they dig in deeper, because to them, changing their mind feels like betrayal. This is why trying to argue with a stupid person often makes them even more convinced they are right. They do not engage in conversation to learn. They engage in conversation to defend themselves at any cost. And this is exactly what makes stupidity so dangerous. It cannot be reasoned with. It can only be reinforced. 2. Stupidity is a social disease, how groups protect foolishness. Bonhoeffer did not just study individuals, he studied societies. And he made a terrifying discovery. Stupidity is more dangerous in groups than in individuals. A single person can be corrected. But when stupidity becomes a shared identity, it becomes impenetrable. This is why crowds, mobs, and political movements often act more foolishly than individuals. In a group, people are not thinking for themselves, they are thinking as part of a collective. And the collective always protects its own beliefs, no matter how absurd. History is filled with examples of this. Religious inquisitions, people were tortured and burned alive for questioning the church, not because of truth, but because the group needed to silence those who threatened its power. Political extremes, whether left or right, radical movements create an us versus them mindset, making it impossible for their followers to consider an opposing viewpoint. Social media mobs, a single false accusation can ruin a person's life because the group values outrage more than facts. When stupidity becomes a collective force, it does not need to justify itself. It only needs to silence opposition. And this is why the most foolish people are often the loudest. They do not argue to find the truth. They argue to defend their tribe. And the more people who join the tribe, the more unstoppable it becomes. 3. The cycle of stupidity, how it keeps spreading. Stupidity is not just powerful, it is self-replicating. Bonhoeffer warned that stupidity is not a passive condition. It actively spreads. Here's how the cycle of stupidity works. Step 1. The willful ignorance. A person chooses not to think critically. They adopt beliefs because they are easy, comforting, or socially rewarding. They reject new information that challenges their worldview. Step 2. The echo chamber. They seek out others who share their same blind spots. They consume media that reinforces their beliefs and shields them from opposing views. Their false beliefs become a group identity. Step 3. The war on truth. The group actively attacks anyone who questions them. They demonize dissenters, calling them dangerous, evil, or brainwashed. Their goal is not to find truth, but to crush opposition. Step 4. The next generation. Schools, media, and institutions are used to protect foolish beliefs and ensure they continue. The cycle repeats, and stupidity becomes the norm. 4. Why stupidity is more dangerous than evil. Most people think evil is the biggest threat to humanity. But Bonhoeffer disagreed. He believed stupidity is far more dangerous than evil. Why? Because evil is at least aware of what it is doing. Evil people know they are lying. They know they are hurting others. A stupid person believes they are right. They believe they are heroes, even when they cause destruction. An evil person can be reasoned with. A stupid person cannot. Evil can be opposed because it recognizes truth. Stupidity destroys truth because it doesn't even recognize it exists. This is why totalitarian regimes do not just rely on cruelty. They rely on mass stupidity. They do not need to silence opposition if people are too stupid to question them. They do not need to hide the truth if people are too stupid to see it. Stupidity is the perfect tool for oppression because stupid people do not need to be controlled. They control themselves. They willingly support their own oppressors. They attack those who try to free them. They celebrate their own ignorance as if it is wisdom. This is why stupidity is the greatest weapon of tyranny. And this is why, throughout history, tyrants do not fear intelligence, they fear people who think for themselves. Because a thinking person cannot be controlled. So what is the solution? If stupidity is this deeply embedded, how do we fight it? Bonhoeffer believed there was only one cure, but requires an act of extreme courage. The only way to defeat stupidity, Bonhoeffer's solution. If stupidity is so dangerous, if it blinds people to reason, makes them loyal to foolishness, and fuels oppression, then how do we fight it? Bonhoeffer believed there was only one solution. It wasn't intelligence. It wasn't education. It wasn't logical arguments. It was courage. The courage to think for yourself, even when everyone around you refuses to. The courage to question authority, even when the world punishes you for it. The courage to face uncomfortable truths, even when ignorance is the easier path. Because stupidity is not about a lack of knowledge. It is about a lack of will. Stupid people do not think because they do not want to think. They do not seek truth because they do not want the responsibility of truth. And that is why stupidity cannot be fixed with arguments. It can only be defeated through independent thought and moral courage. But how does one develop this courage? And what does it really mean to break free from stupidity? Let's go deeper. 1. Stupidity cannot be fixed with arguments. It must be overcome by willpower. Most people believe that if we just explain things clearly, if we just give people the right facts, if we just educate them enough, they will finally wake up. But this is a dangerous illusion. Bonhoeffer warned that stupid people are not lacking information. They are lacking the will to think. No amount of facts will set them free. No amount of logic will change them. No amount of debate will break their chains. Because they do not want to be free. They want comfort, not truth. They want obedience, not understanding. They want to fit in, not to think for themselves. This is why they reject reason, no matter how obvious it is. If a man is deeply attached to his ideology, his group, his side, and you present him with evidence that contradicts his beliefs, does he stop and think? Does he reconsider his position? No. He digs his heels in deeper. He shuts his mind even tighter. He doubles down on his stupidity. Because his goal is not to find the truth. His goal is to stay loyal to the group, to the system, to the comforting lie that keeps his world intact. This is why stupid people are the greatest danger to freedom. They do not simply believe lies. They enforce them. They become the foot soldiers of tyranny. They attack those who think for themselves. They ridicule those who ask questions. They silence those who speak truth. And that is why stupidity cannot be defeated with reason. It can only be defeated with willpower. The willpower to break free. But what does it mean to truly break free? 2. The power of the individual. Why one thinking person is stronger than a crowd. Bonhoeffer understood something that most people never realize. The greatest battles in history were not fought between armies. They were fought between the individual and the crowd. Throughout history, the world has always divided itself into two types of people: the blind followers, the independent thinkers, the cowards who surrender their minds, the rebels who refuse to be controlled, the mob that enforces stupidity, the outcast who dares to think. And every time, the world rewarded the followers and punished the thinkers, because the world does not want independent minds. It wants obedience. It wants people who will blindly follow authority. It wants people who will never question the system. It wants people who will believe what they are told without thinking for themselves. Because those people are easy to control. That is why the strongest person in the world is not the one with power. Is the one who thinks freely. The one who is not afraid to stand alone. The one who is not afraid to question everything. The one who is not afraid to say, "I do not believe you." Because when one person starts thinking for themselves, others start to follow. And that is why stupidity must be enforced with fear. Because once people taste real freedom, the freedom of the mind, they can never go back to the prison of stupidity again. And that is the greatest threat to those in power. 3. The true battle: intelligence versus cowardice. Here is the greatest truth of all. The battle for truth is not a battle of intelligence. It is a battle of bravery. Stupidity is not an accident. It is a choice to surrender your mind. It is not about how smart you are. It is about how much courage you have. Because the truth is dangerous. The truth is painful. The truth requires responsibility. And most people do not have the courage to handle it. That is why stupidity thrives. It is easy. It is safe. It requires nothing from you. And this is why the world is getting dumber. We are not running out of intelligence. We are running out of courage. People are afraid to think for themselves. People are afraid to stand alone. People are afraid to question what they have been told. So they surrender their minds. They give up their freedom. They allow themselves to be controlled. Not because they are stupid, but because they are weak. And that weakness is what allows stupidity to win. So if you want to defeat stupidity, there is only one question you need to ask yourself. Are you strong enough to think for yourself? Because if you are waiting for the world to hand you the truth, if you are waiting for society to reward independent thought, if you are waiting for a time when thinking freely is easy, it will never come. If you want to be free, you must choose it. If you want to think for yourself, you must fight for it. If you want to escape stupidity, you must be brave enough to stand alone. Because in a world that is getting dumber by the day, the rarest thing you can be is a person who dares to think. And that is the only way to defeat stupidity. Final question: are you one of the few who will escape stupidity? Most people will never make the choice to think for themselves. They will take the easy path of blind obedience. But if you are watching this, if you have made it this far, if something inside you is waking up, then you are already different. The question is, will you take the next step? Because now that you see the truth, there is no going back. What will you do with it? Why Bonhoeffer's message matters now more than ever. Dietrich Bonhoeffer was not just warning about Nazi Germany, he was warning about the future. Our present. Look around. His theory of stupidity is more relevant today than ever before. We live in an age where people are not guided by independent thought, but by mass influence. They are driven not by reason, but by emotions, tribalism, and blind conformity. They accept whatever they are told, without questioning, without hesitation. This is exactly how societies collapse. Lies are repeated so often that they become truth. Dissent is silenced in the name of safety. People mock those who think differently, not because they have better arguments, but because they have been conditioned to obey. We see it in politics. We see it in the media. We see it in the way people interact online. Critical thinking is vanishing, and in its place, obedience, emotion, outrage. But here's what's even more terrifying. Stupid people don't know they are stupid. They believe they are wise. They believe they are on the right side of history. They believe they are fighting for justice, truth, and progress. But in reality, they are just tools, pawns of a system that thrives on mass stupidity. The rise of the new age of stupidity. Bonhoeffer observed that intelligent individuals, when placed in the right, or rather the wrong, conditions, could easily become intellectually blind. Today, this blindness is engineered. Social media is designed to keep people addicted to outrage, not to understanding. News is crafted to provoke emotions, not to inform. Education is shifting from teaching people how to think to telling them what to think. The result? A population that reacts rather than reasons. A society where people do not engage in dialogue, but in echo chambers. A world where the loudest voices drown out the wisest ones. And worst of all, the most dangerous fools are those who believe they are enlightened. History has shown us what happens when stupidity takes over. The Roman Empire fell to corruption and ignorance. The Dark Ages thrived on superstition over reason. Nazi Germany followed orders instead of questioning them. And today, we are watching history repeat itself. The symptoms of a society in collapse. People believe propaganda without question. Those who think critically are silenced, mocked, or canceled. Leaders make absurd decisions, and no one dares to challenge them. The masses rally behind stupidity, convinced they are following wisdom. This is how civilization crumbles, not through war, but through the slow, steady erosion of reason itself. How do you fight stupidity? Bonhoeffer had a chilling realization. You cannot argue with stupidity. Logic does not work. Evidence does not work. Truth does not work. Why? Because stupidity is not just ignorance, it is a state of mind, a way of being. Stupid people do not listen. They are trapped in a belief system that feeds their sense of moral superiority. They think they are fighting for justice, while in reality, they are mindless instruments of manipulation. So what can you do? You cannot wake up those who do not want to wake up. You cannot reason with those who refuse to think. You cannot save a world that does not want to be saved. But you can save yourself. You can fight stupidity by never surrendering your mind. You can fight stupidity by daring to think for yourself. You can fight stupidity by questioning everything, even your own beliefs. Because in a world where stupidity reigns, a thinking mind is the rarest and most powerful weapon of all. The ultimate question, will you be one of the few? Bonhoeffer did not live to see the world learn from his insights. He was executed for standing against stupidity and tyranny. But his warning lives on. And now you must ask yourself, do you have the courage to be one of the few who truly think? Because if you do not choose independent thought, it will be chosen for you. If you do not fight stupidity, you will become part of it. And if you do not stand for truth, you will kneel for lies. Are you part of the problem? If you've made it this far, you now understand the unsettling truth. Stupidity isn't just ignorance, it's dangerous. It's not a lack of intelligence, but a force that blinds people to reason, makes them immune to facts, and turns them into weapons of destruction without them even knowing. Dietrich Bonhoeffer warned us that stupidity is more dangerous than evil itself. Because evil can be confronted, debated, and resisted. But stupidity? It spreads like a virus. It hides behind good intentions. It destroys societies while believing it's doing the right thing. And here's the real question. Are you part of the problem? Ask yourself. Have you ever followed the crowd without questioning? Have you ignored facts because they made you uncomfortable? Have you chosen convenience over truth? If the answer is yes, then Bonhoeffer's warning wasn't just about the past. It's about you, me, all of us. But there's a way to fight back. Awareness. Critical thinking. Courage. This channel is here to challenge dangerous ideas, to expose the uncomfortable truths, and to make you think in ways that most people never will. If you're ready to break free from the grip of blind stupidity, subscribe. If you're ready to see the world as it really is, not how they want you to see it, hit the bell icon. And if you believe more people need to hear this message, share this video. Because in a world drowning in blind obedience, thinking for yourself is the greatest act of rebellion.